The champagne glass slipped from Julian's hand and exploded on the floor. Julian Ashford's body followed, crumpling like a puppet with cut strings. The orchestra stopped mid-note. 200 guests in designer gowns and $1,000 suits froze, their faces painted with shock. Someone screamed. Then chaos erupted. Julian! Julian! Victor Ashford shoved through the crowd, his voice cracking with a terror no amount of money could silence. He dropped to his knees beside his son, gripping the boy's shoulders. Julian's eyes had rolled back, his lips turning blue. "Call an ambulance. Now." But the Ashford estate didn't wait for ambulances. Within 90 seconds, a private medical team burst through the ballroom doors, equipment rattling on steel carts. Dr. Elena Morales, the family's personal physician, pressed her fingers to Julian's neck. Her face went pale. No pulse. Starting CPR. She interlaced her fingers and began compressions. 1, 2, 3. The crowd watched in horrified silence as she counted. "Someone get the defibrillator." Victor Ashford, a man who'd built a tech empire worth $8 billion, who negotiated with presidents and crushed competitors without blinking, stood there trembling like a child. His hands hung useless at his sides as strangers fought to save his only son. Clear. The defibrillator discharged. Julian's body jerked. The monitor beeped once, twice, then settled into a weak, irregular rhythm. "We've got something," Dr. Morales said, but her voice carried no relief. "We need to move him. Now." If you're already hooked and want to see how this impossible story unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, what happens next will leave you speechless. And drop a comment telling me if you believe in miracles, because you're about to witness something that defied every law of medicine. The private helicopter touched down at Metropolitan General Hospital 18 minutes later. Julian Ashford was rushed into the ICU, surrounded by the best medical minds money could summon. Dr. Morales worked alongside Dr. James Whitlock, a neurologist flown in from Johns Hopkins, and Dr. Zara Kamani, a cardiac specialist from London. They ran every test imaginable: MRI, CT scans, blood work, toxicology screens. The machines hummed and beeped, printing readouts that told them nothing useful. "His brain activity is minimal," Dr. Whitlock said, studying the monitors with a furrowed brow. "But there's no structural damage. No tumor, no bleeding, no clots. It's as if his brain simply decided to shut down." "That's impossible," Victor snapped. He'd been standing in the corner of the consultation room for 3 hours, his tuxedo jacket discarded, his shirt wrinkled. "People don't just shut down. Find out what's wrong with my son." Dr. Kamani spoke carefully. "Mr. Ashford, we're doing everything we can. But sometimes the human body presents mysteries that I didn't pay you to tell me about mysteries." Victor's fist slammed against the wall. "I paid you to fix him." But days turned into weeks, and Julian remained suspended in that gray space between life and death. His chest rose and fell with the help of machines. Tubes snaked from his arms. His 17-year-old face, once animated with the confidence of privilege, now lay still as marble. The media had a field day. "Billionaire son in mysterious coma," the headline screamed. "Money can't buy a cure." Talk shows dissected every angle. Some blamed drugs, others whispered about rare genetic conditions. A few conspiracy theorists suggested poisoning. Victor Ashford stopped reading the news. He sat by Julian's bedside every day, holding his son's hand, whispering stories about their upcoming trip to the Alps, about the new car waiting in the garage, about everything they'd do when Julian woke up. Because he had to wake up. The alternative was unthinkable. "Sir, you need to rest. Dr. Morales urged on day 43. You haven't left the hospital in over a week. I'll rest when my son opens his eyes, Victor replied, his voice hollow. Across the city, in a neighborhood where the street lights flickered more than they shone, Isaiah Carter was having a very different kind of day. The 16-year-old adjusted the strap of his worn backpack and knocked on Mrs. Baptiste's door. Just a minute, baby, a frail voice called from inside. The door opened to reveal a tiny woman wrapped in a faded bathrobe. Her smile was warm despite the pain Isaiah could see in her eyes. I brought your groceries, Mrs. Baptiste, Isaiah said, holding up 2 plastic bags. Got everything on your list. Oh, Isaiah, you're such a good boy. Come in, come in. Let me get my purse. No, ma'am, it's okay. You paid me last week, remember? He hadn't, but Isaiah knew she'd argue if he told the truth. Mrs. Baptiste was proud. He helped her put away the groceries, humming softly as he worked. It was an old habit, something his mother used to do. The humming seemed to calm Mrs. Baptiste's anxious hands as she fretted about the cost of everything. You have such a beautiful voice, she said, settling into her armchair. Just like an angel. Isaiah smiled, but didn't respond. People always said things like that. What they didn't know was that his humming did something strange. He noticed it first when he was 12, shortly after his mother died. He'd been crying in the park when a stray dog approached, growling. Isaiah had been terrified, but he'd started humming his mother's lullaby without thinking. The dog had sat down, tilted its head, and then curled up at his feet. Since then, Isaiah had discovered that when he hummed or sang, things happened. Crying babies quieted. Agitated animals calmed. Even old Mr. Thompson's blood pressure seemed to drop when Isaiah sang while helping him with his oxygen tank. But Isaiah never told anyone. Who would believe it? And more importantly, who would care about a poor black kid with a weird gift in a city that barely noticed when people like him existed? I should get going, Mrs. Baptiste, Isaiah said, checking the cracked screen of his second-hand phone. Got a night shift tonight. At the hospital again. Yes, ma'am. Cleaning crew. Isaiah had gotten a job 3 weeks ago through a community program. It didn't pay much, but it was legal work, and it meant he could keep the tiny studio apartment he'd been struggling to maintain since aging out of foster care. The hospital night shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Isaiah would mop floors, empty trash bins, and sanitize surfaces while the wealthy patients slept in their private rooms, probably dreaming dreams very different from his. Metropolitan General Hospital at midnight was a different world. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a sterile, bluish glow. Isaiah pushed his cleaning cart down the corridor, his sneakers squeaking against the polished linoleum. Most of the regular staff ignored him. To them, he was just another invisible worker, someone who existed only to keep their world clean. But Isaiah didn't mind being invisible. It gave him space to think, to be alone with his thoughts and his humming. He was assigned to the 3rd floor tonight, which included the ICU wing. As he mopped near the intensive care unit, he noticed the extra security, the cameras, the suited men standing guard outside one particular room. He'd heard the rumors from other cleaning staff. The billionaire's son, the boy who wouldn't wake up. Isaiah had no interest in gossip. Rich people had their problems, poor people had theirs, and never did the two worlds actually meet in any meaningful way. He focused on his work, running the mop in careful figure eights, making sure every inch of floor gleamed. But then he heard it. Beep, 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 beep. The rhythm was irregular, coming from the ICU. Medical monitors, probably. But something about the pattern caught Isaiah's attention. It wasn't random. There was almost a melody hidden in those beeps, a structure that his musician's ear couldn't ignore. Beep, 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 beep. It was late. The guards were distracted, one of them dozing in his chair, the other scrolling through his phone. The nurses had retreated to their station around the corner. Isaiah knew he shouldn't, but curiosity pulled him forward. He left his cart and moved closer to the ICU room, peering through the glass. Inside, surrounded by machines and monitors, lay a boy about his age. White, brown hair, expensive-looking pajamas, even in a coma. This had to be Julian Ashford. Isaiah had never seen someone so sick look so peaceful, like a prince in a fairy tale, waiting for true love's kiss or some magical cure. The monitors beeped their irregular pattern, and without quite meaning to, Isaiah began to hum. It started soft, barely a whisper of sound. He matched the rhythm of the beeps at first, then began to fill in the spaces between them, creating a melody that felt both ancient and new. It was his mother's lullaby, the one she'd sung when he was scared, when the world felt too big and too cruel. The one she'd been humming when she died in an emergency room because they said her insurance wouldn't cover the treatment she needed. Isaiah's eyes closed as he hummed. The melody swelled, filling the empty corridor with something that wasn't quite music, but felt like prayer. Inside the room, something changed. The monitors flickered, just for a second, but they flickered. Then Julian Ashford's right hand, which had lain motionless for 7 weeks, twitched. His fingers curled slightly, like a person reaching for something in sleep. Isaiah's eyes snapped open. He saw the movement, saw the monitors spike, and panic flooded his system. What had he done? He was going to get in trouble. They were going to think he'd broken something, touched something he shouldn't have. He ran. His sneakers pounded against the floor as he sprinted back to his cart, grabbed it, and pushed it toward the service elevator. His heart hammered in his chest. Behind him, he heard a door open, heard someone say, "Did you see that? Check the monitors again." Isaiah made it to the basement storage room and leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. He'd just witnessed something impossible, but maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe the stress of working 2 jobs and barely sleeping was getting to him. Maybe his phone buzzed. A text from his supervisor. "Need you on floor 2. Someone spilled in the cafeteria." Isaiah took a deep breath and got back to work. "Before we continue, I need you to do something for me. If you're invested in this story, if you want to know what happens to Isaiah and Julian, smash that like button and drop a comment below. Tell me, do you think Isaiah really has a gift, or was it just coincidence? Your engagement helps me bring you more incredible stories like this one. Now, let's get back to the miracle that's about to unfold. The next morning, Metropolitan General Hospital erupted in controlled chaos. "Dr. Morales, you need to see this," a nurse called out, waving frantically at the monitors outside Julian's room. His brain activity spiked last night around midnight. "Look at this EEG reading. It's the most activity we've seen in nearly 2 months." Dr. Elena Morales rushed over, her coffee forgotten. She studied the readouts with wide eyes. "This is impossible. What changed? Did someone administer new medication?" "No, nothing." The nurses did their regular check at 11:30, and everything was normal. Then at approximately 12:07, his vitals suddenly improved. Heart rate stabilized, brain waves intensified. Even his oxygen saturation went up without adjusting the ventilator. Victor Ashford appeared in the doorway, his face haggard but hopeful. "What's happening? Is he waking up?" "Not yet," Dr. Morales said carefully. "But this is significant progress, Mr. Ashford. His brain is showing signs of increased activity. It's as if something sparked a response." "What sparked it? What did you do differently?" "That's what we're trying to determine." A security guard approached, holding a tablet. "Dr. Morales, Mr. Ashford, you might want to see this." We pulled the security footage from last night. They crowded around the screen. The timestamp read 12:04 a.m. The footage showed the empty corridor outside the ICU. Then a young black man in a cleaning uniform approached, pushing a cart. He stopped near Julian's room, looking through the glass. He seemed to be listening to something. Then his lips moved. The video had no audio, but it was clear he was singing or humming. The camera angle shifted to show the monitors inside the room. As the young man continued whatever he was doing, the readings began to change. Spikes in brain activity. Movement in Julian's hand. Then the young man ran. "Who is that?" Victor demanded. "Get it back here. Now." "Sir, he's just a cleaning crew worker," the security guard said. "His name is Isaiah Carter, but he's not scheduled to work again until... I don't care if he's the janitor or the Pope. Find him. Today." But finding Isaiah proved complicated. When security called the cleaning company, they learned that Isaiah had finished his shift early that morning and left. His supervisor had his phone number, but Isaiah wasn't answering calls. He lived alone, had no family listed in his emergency contacts, and his address led to a rundown apartment building in a neighborhood where outsiders weren't exactly welcome. Meanwhile, Julian's condition continued to improve. Slowly, but measurably. His brain waves strengthened. His vitals stabilized without medication adjustments. Dr. Whitlaw called it unprecedented. Dr. Kamani admitted she had no medical explanation. Victor Ashford wanted answers. And he wanted that boy. Isaiah, for his part, was trying very hard to disappear. He'd called in sick to his next shift, which he'd never done before. He stayed in his apartment, curtains drawn, convincing himself that what he'd seen was a coincidence. The boy's hand probably twitched on its own. The monitors probably glitched. It had nothing to do with him. But he couldn't stop thinking about it, about the way the melody had felt flowing out of him, like it wasn't his voice at all, but something being channeled through him. About the way Julian's fingers had moved, reaching for something. About his mother, lying in a different hospital bed years ago, holding his hand as the life drained from her eyes because nobody would help her. 3 days later, there was a knock on Isaiah's door. He froze, sitting on his second-hand couch, wondering if he should pretend he wasn't home. The knock came again, more insistent. "Isaiah Carter, this is hospital security. We need to speak with you. You're not in trouble, but it's urgent." "Not in trouble." Right. That's what they always said before the handcuffs came out. Isaiah had been through enough foster homes and enough interactions with authority to know better. But he also knew that hiding would only make things worse. He opened the door. 2 security guards stood there, along with a woman in a white coat. "Dr. Morales." "Isaiah, I'm Dr. Elena Morales. I understand you work on the cleaning crew at Metropolitan General." "Yes, ma'am," Isaiah said quietly. "Did I do something wrong?" "That's what we're trying to understand. We have footage of you outside one of our patients' rooms 3 nights ago. The patient showed significant improvement right after you were there. Can you explain what happened?" Isaiah's throat went dry. "I was just cleaning, ma'am. I stopped to look because I heard the monitors. I didn't touch anything or go inside." "We're not accusing you of anything," Dr. Morales said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "But we need you to come with us. Mr. Ashford, the patient's father, wants to speak with you." "I can't afford any trouble," Isaiah said. "I need this job. You're not fired, but you need to come with us. Now." The drive back to the hospital felt like a funeral procession. Isaiah sat in the back of the security vehicle, his hands clenched in his lap, imagining all the ways this could go wrong. Rich people didn't just talk to poor people. They sued them, arrested them, destroyed them. And if Victor Ashford thought Isaiah had done something to his son, they brought him to a private conference room on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Isaiah had never been this high up in the hospital before. Everything up here was pristine, expensive, nothing like the basement floors where he worked. Victor Ashford stood by the window, his back to the door. He was shorter than Isaiah had imagined, and his shoulders were slumped with exhaustion. "Mr. Ashford, this is Isaiah Carter," Dr. Morales said. Victor turned around. His eyes were bloodshot, his face unshaven. He looked at Isaiah for a long moment, and Isaiah forced himself to maintain eye contact, even though every instinct told him to look down, to make himself smaller. "You were outside my son's room 3 nights ago," Victor said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. I was cleaning that floor." "And what were you doing outside his room specifically?" Isaiah hesitated. The truth sounded insane, but lying seemed worse. "I heard the monitors, sir. The beeping. It had a pattern, and I'm kind of into music, so I noticed it. I stopped to listen. That's all. The security footage shows you were singing or humming. I hum sometimes when I work. It's just a habit." Victor stepped closer. "My son's condition improved the moment you started humming. His brain activity spiked for the first time in 2 months. The doctors have no explanation. So I'm asking you, Isaiah Carter, what did you do?" "Nothing, sir. I swear. I just hummed a little. I didn't think it would." "What song?" The question caught Isaiah off guard. What song were you humming?" Isaiah swallowed hard. "A lullaby. My mother used to sing it to me before she died." The room fell silent. Victor Ashford stared at him, his expression unreadable. Then, to everyone's surprise, he pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. "Sit," he commanded. Isaiah sat. "Tell me about your mother." "Sir, I don't understand what." "Tell me." So Isaiah told him about Grace Carter, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep them fed after his father left. About her kindness, her strength, her laugh that could light up a room. About the day she collapsed at work. About the hospital that turned her away. About holding her hand as she died because the treatment she needed cost more than they could ever afford. About the lullaby she'd sung even in her final moments, trying to comfort him instead of herself. Victor Ashford listened without interrupting. When Isaiah finished, the billionaire's jaw was tight. "I'm sorry," Victor said quietly. "I'm sorry that happened to your mother." Isaiah didn't know what to say to that. "My son is dying," Victor continued. "The best doctors in the world can't help him. But you walked past his room, hummed a song, and he responded. I don't understand it. I don't believe in magic or miracles or whatever this is, but I believe in results. And the result is that my son got better when you were near him. Mr. Ashford, I really don't think. I'm not asking you to think. I'm asking you to help me save my son." Dr. Morales leaned forward. "Mr. Ashford, we can't just bring an untrained civilian into a medical situation. There are protocols, liability issues. I don't care about protocols." Victor's fist hit the table. "I care about my son. If there's even a chance that this boy can help him, I'm taking it." He turned back to Isaiah, his eyes desperate. "Please, I'll pay you anything. Name your price." Isaiah thought about Mrs. Baptiste's medication, about his overdue rent, about every bill he couldn't pay. But he also thought about his mother, about how money had been the wall between her and life. "I don't want your money," Isaiah heard himself say. "But if I can help your son, I'll try. Not for you, for him." That night, under strict supervision and against multiple medical advisories, Isaiah was brought into Julian Ashford's ICU room. Dr. Morales, Dr. Whitlock, and a team of nurses stood by with emergency equipment. Victor Ashford stood in the corner, his hands clasped as if in prayer. Isaiah approached the bed slowly. Up close, Julian looked younger than 17. Vulnerable. Human. All the machines keeping him alive hummed and beeped their mechanical songs. "What do I do?" Isaiah asked. "Whatever you did before," Victor said. "Please." Isaiah took a deep breath. He felt foolish, standing there with everyone watching him, about to sing to a comatose boy like some kind of fairy tale character. But he'd promised to try. He began to hum. The lullaby flowed out of him, soft at first, then gaining strength. It filled the room, blending with the sound of the machines, creating something that was more than just music. Isaiah closed his eyes and let the melody take him, Let it carry him back to his mother's voice, to her hand stroking his hair, to the feeling of being loved and safe in a world that was neither. And as he sang, something shifted in the room. The monitor's beeping began to synchronize with his rhythm. Julian's breathing, controlled by the ventilator, seemed to match the rise and fall of the melody. The nurses exchanged glances. Dr. Morales's eyes widened as she watched the brain activity monitors light up like Christmas trees. "Impossible," Dr. Whitlock whispered. Isaiah kept singing, and as he sang, he thought about all the pain in the world, all the people who suffered while others lived in luxury, all the mothers who died because they couldn't afford to live, all the sons who lost them. He thought about the unfairness of it all, the cruelty, the waste. And he thought about the power of one voice to reach another, to remind someone that they're not alone, even in the darkest places. Julian's eyes moved beneath his closed lids. His heart rate increased. His fingers curled. Then, for the first time in 63 days, Julian Ashford took a breath on his own. The ventilator alarm went off as Julian's lungs fought the machine's rhythm, demanding to breathe independently. Dr. Morales rushed forward, checking the monitors with shaking hands. "He's breathing on his own," she said, her voice cracking. "He's actually breathing on his own." Victor Ashford collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face. His shoulders shook with sobs he'd been holding back for 2 months. Isaiah stopped singing. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors and Julian's natural breathing. But nothing else happened. Julian didn't wake up. His eyes remained closed. "Why isn't he waking up?" Victor demanded, lifting his tear-streaked face. "He's breathing. Why won't he wake up?" "Mr. Ashford, this is already miraculous," Dr. Morales said. "We need to run tests, understand what's happening. But he's breathing independently. That's massive progress." They tried to get Isaiah to stay, to sing more, to somehow make Julian wake up completely. But Isaiah felt drained, hollow, like the song had taken something from him. He asked to go home, and reluctantly, they let him, though Victor insisted on assigning him a security detail and giving him a phone number that connected directly to Victor's personal cell. "If anything happens, if you remember anything, if you're willing to try again, call me," Victor said, gripping Isaiah's shoulder. "Please." Isaiah nodded and laughed, walking out of the hospital into the early morning light. He felt different somehow, like he'd crossed a line he could never uncross. Over the next 2 days, Julian's condition continued to improve. He was taken off the ventilator completely. His brain activity increased steadily, but he remained unconscious, trapped in that in-between space. The doctors debated possible explanations: spontaneous recovery, delayed response to previous treatments, unprecedented neurological phenomena. But none of them could explain why it had all started when Isaiah hummed. The media somehow got wind of the story. "Mystery Boy Helps Billionaire's Son," the headlines read. "Musical Miracle at Metropolitan General." Reporters camped outside Isaiah's apartment building. He stopped answering his phone. On the 3rd day, at 2 in the morning, Isaiah's phone rang. Victor Ashford's private number. "Isaiah, you need to come now." Victor's voice was panicked. "Julian is crashing. His vitals are dropping. The doctors don't know why. Please, please, he's dying." Isaiah was out the door before the call ended. The security car raced through empty streets. Isaiah sat in the back, his heart pounding. He didn't understand what was happening. Why would Julian crash now, after days of improvement? Unless whatever Isaiah had done was wearing off. Unless it wasn't a cure at all, just a temporary bridge. They rushed him through the hospital, up the elevator, down the corridor. Nurses and doctors parted as he ran toward the ICU. Inside Julian's room, alarm shrieked. The boy's face was pale, his breathing shallow. The monitors showed dropping oxygen levels, weakening heart rate. "Do something." Victor screamed at the medical team. "Do something. We're trying everything. Dr. Morales said, her voice strained. But his body is shutting down. I don't know why. Isaiah pushed past them all and grabbed Julian's hand. It was cold, getting colder, like his mother's hand had felt in those final moments. No, Isaiah said. No, you don't get to die. Not like this. And he began to sing. Not hum this time. Sing. Full voice. The lullaby poured out of him, but this time with different words. Words his mother had never taught him. Words that came from somewhere deeper than memory. He sang about living, about fighting, about refusing to let go even when the darkness calls. He sang about pain and loss and the courage it takes to keep breathing when everything hurts. He sang about his mother, about how she'd fought until her last breath, about how her love had survived even her death. And he sang to Julian, this boy he didn't know, this boy from a different world who somehow needed him in this impossible way. Come back, Isaiah sang, tears streaming down his face. Come back. Your father needs you. I need you to come back because if you die, then what was the point? What's the point of any of this if we just keep losing people? The machine screamed. Victor Ashford sobbed openly. The medical team stood frozen, unable to do anything but watch. Isaiah sang louder. And then, in the chaos of alarms and fear and desperate hope, Julian Ashford's eyes opened. They were blue, confused, searching. They focused slowly on Isaiah's face. Julian's lips moved, trying to form words. The tube in his throat prevented it, but everyone could read his lips. Isaiah. The room exploded. Doctors rushed forward. Nurses checked monitors. Victor Ashford pushed through them all to reach his son. But Julian's eyes stayed locked on Isaiah, questioning, knowing somehow that this stranger had pulled him back from wherever he'd been. They removed the tube. Julian coughed, gasped, breathed. His first words were quiet but clear. You were singing. Yeah, Isaiah said, his voice breaking. I was singing. It was beautiful. It sounded like my mom. Victor froze. His wife, Julian's mother, had died when Julian was 8. A car accident. Sudden. Final. Victor had thrown himself into work afterward, building his empire bigger, as if money and success could fill the void she'd left. But Julian had been there. Julian remembered. Your mom sang to you? Isaiah asked gently. Every night, Julian whispered, until she couldn't anymore. And then nobody did. Nobody sang anymore. Victor Ashford broke. He collapsed beside his son's bed, grabbing Julian's hand, pressing it to his forehead. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I forgot how to sing. I forgot how to do anything but work and worry and try to control everything. And I almost lost you. I almost lost you the same way I lost her. Julian's hand, weak but moving, touched his father's hair. Dad, it's okay. I'm here. Isaiah stepped back, giving them space. He felt exhausted, wrung out, but also lighter somehow. He turned to leave. Wait, Julian called. Isaiah, wait. Don't go. Isaiah stopped at the door. Thank you, Julian said. I heard you. When I was in the dark, I heard your voice, and it gave me something to follow home. Thank you. Isaiah nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and left the room. The story exploded across every media outlet. Poor boy's voice wakes billionaire's son. Miracle at Metropolitan General confirmed. The hospital was flooded with interview requests, book deal offers, movie rights inquiries. Everyone wanted a piece of the miracle. Victor Ashford held a press conference 1 week later. Julian sat beside him, still weak but recovering rapidly. Isaiah had refused to attend, but they'd convinced him to watch from a private room. My son is alive because of Isaiah Carter, Victor said, his voice steady but emotional. Not because of my money, not because of the best doctors, not because of anything I did. A 16-year-old boy with nothing, but his voice gave my son back his life. That has changed me. It should change all of us. He announced the establishment of the Grace Carter Memorial Foundation, named after Isaiah's mother. Its mission, to ensure that no one would be turned away from medical care due to inability to pay. Initial funding, $1 billion. Grace Carter died because our system failed her, Victor said. Her son saved my son's life. The least I can do is make sure her death meant something, that it leads to change. The reporters went wild with questions, but Victor held up his hand for silence. I also want to say something directly to Isaiah, who I know is watching. You told me you didn't want my money, but I'm asking you to reconsider, not for yourself, but for your community. I want to fund your education, any school you want. I want to help renovate your neighborhood, improve housing, create opportunities, not as charity, but as partnership. Because you taught me something important. Real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in connection, in compassion, in the courage to care about people who aren't like us. He paused, his voice thickening. My son is alive because you care enough to sing. I want to build a world where that kind of caring isn't rare. It's the standard. In the private room, Isaiah wiped his eyes. On the screen, Julian leaned forward to the microphone. Isaiah, if you're watching, I want you to know something. When I was in the coma, I wasn't just unconscious. I was aware, trapped inside myself, screaming for help, but unable to reach anyone. Until I heard you. Your voice cut through the darkness like light. And the song you sang, it wasn't just music. It was love. The kind of love my mom used to give me before she died. The kind of love I thought was gone from the world. Julian's voice broke, but he continued. You gave that back to me, and I don't know how to thank you for that. But I want you to know that you're my brother now. Not by blood, but by something stronger. You brought me back to life. That makes us family. The conference ended. The world buzzed with the story. But Isaiah slipped out of the hospital quietly, avoiding the cameras, and went home. He stood in his small apartment, looking out at the city lights, thinking about his mother, thinking about Julian, thinking about how strange and impossible life could be. His phone buzzed. A text from Julian's new number. Coffee tomorrow? I want to hear more about your mom. And maybe you can teach me that song. Isaiah smiled and typed back. Yeah, I'd like that. 3 months later, Metropolitan General Hospital held a ceremony. They were unveiling a new wing dedicated to accessible health care, funded by the Grace Carter Memorial Foundation. Isaiah stood next to Julian and Victor, uncomfortable in the suit they'd bought him, but present because Julian had asked. A plaque was revealed. It bore his mother's name, her dates, and a simple inscription. Love is the medicine that reaches where science cannot. Would you like to say something? Victor asked Isaiah quietly. Isaiah looked at the plaque, at his mother's name carved in bronze, permanent and honored. He thought about how she died forgotten in a system that valued money over lives. And now her name would hang in this place forever, a reminder that things could be different. My mom always said that we're all connected, Isaiah said into the microphone, his voice soft but clear. Rich or poor, black or white, sick or healthy. She said that when one person suffers, we all suffer. And when one person is healed, we all heal a little bit too. He looked at Julian, who stood beside him with clear eyes and a strong heartbeat. I didn't save Julian because I thought I'd get something out of it. I sang to him because I couldn't bear to watch another person slip away. Because I know what it feels like to lose someone you love. And I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. My mom didn't get a miracle. She didn't get a second chance. But maybe her death can mean something if it helps other people live. Maybe that's the real miracle, not what happened in that hospital room, but what we choose to do because of it. Isaiah stepped back from the microphone. The applause started slowly, then built into a roar. But he wasn't listening to the applause. He was looking at the plaque, at his mother's name, and whispering, I miss you, Mom, but I'm making you proud. I promise. Julian grabbed his hand and squeezed. No words needed. Just connection. Just understanding. That evening, as the sun set over the city, Isaiah and Julian sat on the hospital roof, their legs dangling over the edge. Below them, the city hummed with life, millions of stories intersecting and diverging, pain and joy existing side by side. "Can I ask you something?" Julian said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Sure. When you were singing to me that last time, when I was dying, what were you thinking about?" Isaiah was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I was thinking about my mom, about how she fought so hard to live, but nobody would help her. And I was thinking about how unfair it was that I could help you, but I couldn't help her. That made me angry. But then I realized something." "What?" "I realized that maybe I was helping her. By helping you. Because every life saved is a victory against the darkness that took her. Every person who gets care they couldn't afford is her legacy. Does that make sense?" Julian nodded slowly. "It does. And Isaiah, I want you to know something. I'm not going to waste this second chance. I'm not going to be like my dad used to be, so focused on making money that I forget about people. You saved my life. I'm going to spend it trying to save others. You don't owe me anything. I know, but I owe myself. I owe my mom's memory. And I owe all the people out there who need someone to care." Julian turned to face him directly. "We're going to do this together. You and me. We're going to change things." Isaiah smiled. "That's a pretty big goal. So, big goals need big dreams. And you literally brought someone back from the dead with a song. I think we can handle changing the world." They sat there as the stars began to appear, two boys from different worlds who'd found each other in the most impossible way. And in that moment, with the city spread out below them and the future stretching ahead, anything seemed possible. The weeks turned into months. The Grace Carter Memorial Foundation opened free clinics in underserved neighborhoods. They funded medical research into mysterious conditions like Julian's. They provided scholarships for kids like Isaiah who'd aged out of foster care. And slowly, quietly, they began to make a difference. Isaiah enrolled in college, studying music therapy. Julian worked alongside his father, learning the business, but pushing for change from the inside. They met every week for coffee, sometimes talking about big plans, sometimes just being friends. Mrs. Baptiste's medication was covered now. Mr. Thompson got the oxygen equipment he needed. The widow on the 5th floor received the surgery that saved her eyesight. One person at a time, one life at a time, things changed. The media eventually moved on to other stories. The miracle at Metropolitan General became old news. But for the people whose lives were touched by what had happened that night, for the families who no longer had to choose between medicine and food, for the mothers who wouldn't die because they couldn't pay, the miracle continued every single day. Isaiah still hummed when he worked. He hummed when he studied, when he rode the bus, when he visited the cemetery where his mother was buried. And sometimes, late at night, he'd get a text from Julian. "Can't sleep. Sing me something." And Isaiah would call him and sing the lullaby, the same one his mother had sung, the same one that had pulled Julian back from the edge. And Julian would listen and remember and be grateful for every breath. One year after Julian woke up, they returned to the hospital together, not for ceremony or publicity, but because Julian wanted to visit the ICU to see the place where he'd almost died. They stood outside the room where it had all happened. It was occupied now by another patient, another family facing their own crisis. Through the glass, they could see a woman sitting beside a young girl's bed, holding her hand, whispering prayers. "Do you remember any of it?" Isaiah asked. "Being in the coma?" Julian nodded. "Some. It's hard to explain. It was like being underwater, hearing sounds but not understanding them, seeing light but not being able to reach it. And then your voice came through. It was the first thing that felt real. The first thing that made me want to fight. I'm glad I was there." "Me too." Julian paused. "Isaiah, I never asked you this, but do you understand what happened? Like scientifically? Do you know why your singing woke me up?" Isaiah shrugged. "The doctors have theories. Something about sound frequencies and brain stimulation and neurological patterns. But honestly, I think it was simpler than that. What do you mean? I think you were lost, and I gave you a way home. Not because I'm special or magical, but because I understood what it felt like to be lost. Because I sang with everything I had, all my pain and love and hope. And somehow that reached you where nothing else could. Julian considered this. So it was empathy? Maybe. Or maybe it was just proof that we're all connected, like my mom said. That when we really open ourselves up to each other, when we really see each other's pain and joy, incredible things can happen. They watched the woman in the room stroke her daughter's hair, her lips moving in constant prayer. And Isaiah wondered if somewhere in that girl's darkness, she could hear her mother's voice, fighting to bring her home. Come on, Julian said. Let's go get that coffee. I want to tell you about the new clinic we're opening in your old neighborhood. As they walked away, Isaiah glanced back one more time, and in his mind, he sang a quiet note, a whisper of hope for the girl in that room, for her mother, for everyone fighting battles in the dark. The years passed. Isaiah graduated college and opened his own practice, using music therapy to help patients heal from trauma, illness, and loss. Julian took over his father's company and transformed it, making ethical practices and social responsibility the core of everything they did. Victor Ashford, humbled by his son's brush with death, became a different kind of businessman. He used his wealth to create change, to fund research, to support communities that had been forgotten. He never forgot the boy who'd saved his son's life, and more importantly, he never forgot the lesson that came with it, that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. The Grace Carter Memorial Foundation grew beyond anyone's expectations. It funded hundreds of clinics, thousands of scholarships, millions of medical procedures for people who couldn't afford them. And on every building, every document, every check they wrote, Grace's name appeared, a reminder that she had mattered, that her death had sparked something beautiful. Isaiah never forgot where he came from. Even as opportunities opened up, even as his own life transformed, he remained connected to his community. He still visited Mrs. Baptiste, though now she lived in a renovated apartment with working heat and an elevator. He still helped Mr. Thompson, though now the old man had access to proper health care. He still walked those same streets where he'd grown up, but now they were safer, cleaner, filled with hope instead of despair. And sometimes, on quiet nights, Isaiah would stand at his mother's grave and sing to her. He'd tell her about Julian, about the foundation, about all the lives that had been saved because one boy had refused to let another boy die. He'd tell her that her death hadn't been meaningless, that her love had survived her, had changed the world in ways she never could have imagined. I hope you're proud, Mom, he'd whisper. I hope wherever you are, you know that you mattered, that you still matter. And in the silence that followed, Isaiah could almost hear her voice, singing the lullaby back to him, telling him what she'd always told him, that love never dies, it just changes form, and that the connections we make with each other are the only things that truly last. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you something. This story, this incredible journey of Isaiah and Julian, is exactly why I make these videos. To show you that miracles happen not because of money or power, but because of human connection, because of love, because someone chose to care when they didn't have to. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about the world, then please do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss stories like this. Hit that like button to help others discover this message. And most importantly, drop a comment below. Tell me about a time someone helped you when they didn't have to. Tell me about the connections that changed your life. Because those stories matter. Your story matters. 10 years after that night in the ICU, Metropolitan General Hospital held an anniversary celebration. The Grace Carter Memorial Foundation had now saved over 50,000 lives. Free clinics operated in 40 cities. Medical debt relief programs had helped hundreds of thousands of families. And it all started because one boy sang to another. Isaiah stood at the podium, now 26 years old, confident in ways his teenage self could never have imagined. Julian stood beside him, healthy, vibrant, alive. Victor Ashford sat in the front row, older but softer somehow, surrounded by board members and community leaders, and people whose lives have been changed by the foundation. My mother used to tell me that every person has a song inside them, Isaiah said to the crowd. A unique melody that's theirs alone. And she said that when we share our songs with each other, when we really listen to what someone else is singing, that's when magic happens. That's when we stop being strangers and become family. He looked at Julian, at Victor, at all the faces in the crowd. 10 years ago, I sang my song to a boy I didn't know. I didn't know if it would help. I didn't know if anything would change. I just knew that I couldn't stay silent while someone suffered. And that choice, that moment of caring, started a ripple that's still spreading. Isaiah's voice grew stronger. But here's what I want you to understand. I'm not special. There was no magic in what I did. What saved Julian's life wasn't some supernatural gift. It was empathy. It was connection. It was the willingness to see someone else's pain and do something about it, even when it's not convenient, even when it's scary, even when there's nothing in it for you. Every single one of you has that power. Every one of you can sing your song, can reach out to someone who's lost in the darkness, can make the choice to care. You don't need money to do it. You don't need fame or power or special abilities. You just need to be willing to see each other as human beings, deserving of love and dignity and help. The crowd was silent, absorbed in his words. My mother died because people chose to look away, because a system decided her life wasn't worth saving. But her death planted a seed that grew into something beautiful. And now, because one boy lived, thousands of others will too. That's her legacy. That's what love does. It multiplies. It spreads. It refuses to die. Isaiah's voice caught with emotion. So I'm asking you, all of you, to carry that legacy forward. Sing your song to whoever needs to hear it. Reach out to whoever is drowning. Care about people who aren't like you, who don't live in your neighborhood, who can't do anything for you in return. Because that's how we change the world. Not with grand gestures or billion-dollar donations, though those help, but with small acts of radical compassion, repeated over and over until they become a chorus that drowns out all the darkness. He stepped back from the podium. The applause was thunderous, but Isaiah barely heard it. He was looking at the banner behind him, at his mother's face in the photograph they'd chosen, at her smile that had survived her death and inspired thousands of others to live. "We did it, Mom," he whispered. "We turned your pain into purpose, your death into life, your silence into a song that will never end." Julian put his arm around Isaiah's shoulders, and together they stood there, two brothers not by blood but by miracle, proof that the darkest nights can lead to the brightest dawns, that the most unlikely connections can change everything. That love, in the end, is the only medicine that truly heals. As the celebration continued around them, as people shared stories and made plans and dreamed of the future, Isaiah closed his eyes and hummed. The same lullaby, the same melody. And somewhere, in the space between sound and silence, between memory and hope, Grace Carter's voice joined his, singing along, proud of her son, grateful that her love had survived her, had multiplied and spread until it touched thousands of lives she would never meet, but whose existence was forever intertwined with her own. That night, as Isaiah walked out of the hospital into the cool evening air, he passed by the emergency room entrance. A young mother stood there with her sick child, arguing with the admissions clerk about insurance. Isaiah saw the panic in her eyes, the fear, the desperation. He saw his own mother, 20 years ago, standing in a similar place, facing a similar wall. He walked over to them. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Is everything okay?" The woman looked at him with tears in her eyes. "They're saying I need to pay up front, but I don't have it. My daughter has a fever that won't break. She needs help." Isaiah pulled out his phone and made a call. Hey, it's Isaiah Carter. I'm at the ER entrance at Metropolitan General. There's a family here that needs help. Yes, I'll wait. He turned to the woman. What's your daughter's name? Maya. She's 4. Maya is going to be fine. I promise. Within minutes, a doctor and 2 nurses emerged. The admissions clerk's face paled as she realized who Isaiah was. The family was rushed inside. Insurance paperwork forgotten. Care provided immediately. The mother grabbed Isaiah's hand as they wheeled her daughter away. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know who you are, but thank you. Just someone who understands, Isaiah said. Just someone whose mother taught him that we're all connected. That when one person suffers, we all suffer. And when one person is healed, we all heal. He watched them disappear into the hospital, into the same building where his own miracle had happened, where death had been defeated by nothing more than a song and the refusal to let another person slip away into the darkness. And Isaiah smiled, because he understood now what his mother had always known. That love is the medicine that reaches where science cannot. That empathy is the bridge between despair and hope. And that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply sing your song into the darkness and trust that someone lost will hear it and find their way home. The story of Isaiah and Julian became legend in the halls of Metropolitan General. New doctors learned about it in their training. Nurses told it to frighten patients. And somewhere in that hospital, in every room where someone fought for their life, the spirit of Grace Carter lived on, proof that even in death, love survives, multiplies, and saves lives that will save other lives in an endless chain of connection that binds us all together. Isaiah walked home through the city streets, humming his mother's lullaby, carrying her love with him, spreading it to everyone he met, one song, one connection, one miracle at a time. And if you listen closely, in the quiet spaces between the city's noise, you could still hear her voice, singing along with her son, proud of what he'd become, grateful that her death had meant something, that her love had survived, that her song would never end. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, if it reminded you that we all have the power to make miracles happen through simple acts of compassion, then share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that celebrate the power of human connection. And remember, you have a song inside you. Someone out there needs to hear it. Don't keep it silent. The world needs your voice. The world needs your compassion. The world needs you to care. Until next time, keep singing, keep connecting, keep believing in miracles, because they're real, and they start with you.